Welcome to the Darkstream. Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com, and Infogalactic News. Thanks for tuning in. It's been kind of a amusing few days here. I'm going to shill my book, SJWs Always Lie, a little bit. Or, if you prefer, we even have the shirt. And this is valid and relevant to the news cycle today for two reasons. Number one, there's this affair in Montana with with John Forte, or whatever his name is, the Republican candidate, and the the journalist from the Guardian. Now, the title of the book, as you're aware, is SJWs Always Lie, right? Is a Guardian reporter an SJW? Indubitably. Absolutely. So, what can we safely conclude about this guy? What can we safely conclude about this Guardian journalist? He's lying. I have absolutely no question, no doubt that he's lying. And why do I have no doubt? Because every single time the Guardian has talked about me, they've lied. Every single time. I don't even pay attention to when they write articles about me or the alt-right or Cernovich or anything else, because they are always pushing a false narrative. Every single time I've bothered to look, it's completely false. The Guardian is funded by what at one point was practically $1 billion trust fund. They've been losing on the order of $200 million a year. They're probably going to, if I remember when I looked at it the last time, they were on a course to run out of money within, I think, 5 or 6 years. So the Guardian is not going to be around long, or it would not be until it's going to get bought by some, rich SJW tech mogul who will be able to keep them afloat, the same way that Jeff Bezos is keeping the Washington Post afloat, and that whatever his name is, Slim, the Mexican, is keeping the New York Times afloat. So someone will pick it up. These newspapers are valuable as basically, PR narrative determining organizations, but they're no longer legitimate functional organizations. They're propaganda outlets. And to a certain extent they always have been, but actually I did read the article, the one about St. Breivik and whatnot. It was a good perspective. I don't really disagree with anything that the guy wrote. What you have to keep in mind about Silicon Valley is it's all manufactured now. Other than Facebook and Google, none of these companies make money. Twitter doesn't make money. It's propped up. And so, how many daily views? It gets about 100,000. So, it's pretty small, but not totally insignificant. And so, Facebook does make money. But Twitter doesn't, and Instagram, Snapchat, all that kind of stuff. None of those make any money. I don't really make money on the blog per se because I don't have any. There's no advertising. I don't try to advertise. Castalia House is people buying our books is the way that the blog sort of indirectly makes money, but it's not a if you want to support what we're doing, there's two ways. Number one, buy Castalia House books, particularly mine, or directly support Infogalactic. Join the Burn Unit, subscribe, and that's great. That's what keeps Infogalactic servers paid for, and so forth. And so, and we have tremendous support. Or or buy a T-shirt from Crypto Fashion. That works too. The thing is that we have great support from the Dread Ilk. I really appreciate it, and that's what makes it possible to do these things. And so, actually, we're not set up with Bitcoin yet, but we're going to do that soon. But to get back to the journo punching thing, we did hit the initial burn unit goal. The Dread Ilk are my longtime supporters. Yeah, well, here's the thing, is that because the global elite and the bankers are keeping all these SJW organizations propped up, and they're bussing in, protesters, and they're supporting, all these different organizations and so forth, that all of which are failing. All of which, with the exception again of Google and Facebook, all of them are failing. Yeah, Antifa is definitely propped up by the same small group of people. George Soros is kind of at the center, but he's not the only one. You have to understand that in the tech investment world, the way that it works is that they go and they find some company that they can easily pump money into, blow up, take public, and profit from. And they do this again and again and again and again. And so, one of the problems we have, we're getting off topic here, but it's relevant. It's something I was planning to talk about anyhow. One of the problems that we have on the right is everybody wants to run off and do their own thing. Everybody is focused on, everyone tends to be focused on immediate short-term benefit to themselves. Meanwhile, the wealthy folks on the right tend to be very conservative, and I think in part often because of their wives, they are very hesitant to do anything that is going to lead to public condemnation from the left. So we see how, if you look at even major figures like Bill O'Reilly, Roger Ailes, now Sean Hannity, prior to that Glenn Beck, Rush Limbaugh, none of these guys have been successful. None of them have been successful in building up a independent infrastructure, because all of them tend to focus on themselves. It's not just that they are, some of them are cucks, some of them are not. Glenn Beck obviously was. If you recall, you can look at my blog, going all the way back to 2003. You will never, ever, ever hear me say anything positive about Glenn Beck. I always knew that he was full of it. Rush is better than the others, but again, he's talent. He's not a builder. He's not a strategist. And that's one of the fundamental problems that we have, is because most of the people on the right, they tend to want to be the star of the show, and they can't really bear anybody else getting any attention. They always want to throw themselves into it. Yeah, Peter Thiel is pretty good. No, Milo is... I love Milo, and he's a friend of mine, but Milo is definitely not a strategist and so forth. Alex Jones might count. I don't really know much about InfoWars or how it's structured, but yeah, the right really does have a problem with being excessively egocentric, excessively self-centered, and not building up others. Stefan Molyneux is an exception. He does a really good job of building up other people. Cernovich is an exception. He also tries to build up other people. I think that you look at the difference between a Brittany Pettibone and a Tara McCarthy, both of whom are very smart. They're young and they're smart, but they are actually focused on working with others and building up others. They invite, I've been on their show, they invite different people on the right to be on their show all the time. Whereas, I've never talked to anyone from InfoWars. And again, I'm not criticizing. Well, I guess to a certain extent, let me back up. I am criticizing, I am not complaining. I'm not even really criticizing, I'm mostly observing. Richard, I like Richard. I think he's smart. But as I've said many times, I think that he is operating on a outdated media model. I've talked to him. He's been on one of my brainstorms before. He said his goal is to create a think tank. That's not really a good strategy. And also, Richard's mode is to get into disputes and try to leverage that into attention. Cernovich did that very effectively, but he's dropped that. Would I interview Roosh? If you've read his book, you know that Roosh and I talk, I wouldn't say all the time, but we certainly talk on a regular basis. He's a friend of mine. I couldn't possibly say anything about the guy in Montana because I pay no attention. The last time I was in Montana, I was actually in Bozeman, Montana, but that was when I was 15 and skiing at Big Sky. So, I'm no expert on their elections. Well, that's the thing, is that someone like a Dennis Prager is not going to debate me for two reasons. Number one, Prager doesn't want to give people to his right a platform. Number two, Prager's not anywhere near my league in a debate, and he knows it. And so, I'm never going to be a media figure. I live in Europe. I'm not very good on TV and video. My intellect is in excess of the 30-point IQ gap that is generally considered necessary for effective communication. That's an interesting question. Was my family in America old money or new money? Yes. There's a pattern in my family going back to, if you look on Wikipedia, actually, there's a treasure that no one's found. One of my ancestors left 2 codes, and they cracked one, which tells what the treasure is, and no one's ever been able to crack the code that says where it is. And so, what's kind of interesting is that my family typically goes in this 3-generation cycle where one generation gets super wealthy. Yeah, or look on Infogalactic. I don't actually know if it should be on Infogalactic, but I've never looked. Anyhow, my family has historically gotten extremely wealthy, and then the next generation completely loses it. My dad managed to do it all himself. He came up from very little, got very wealthy, and then managed to lose it all by the time he was 65. So, anyhow, we'll see. We've got some new games coming out soon, so hopefully I'll be able to be on the right side of the generational curve, or maybe one of my kids will. Who knows? Yeah, no, the whole shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves thing is common, but my family tends to do it more in a more spectacular manner than most. So, anyhow, my brothers and I tend to find this mildly amusing. When we found out about it, basically one of my brothers went out to the east and visited this place, and there's this huge mansion and whatnot, and it turned out it was our great grandfather's place. So who knew? Anyhow, but the point is that so let's get back to the journalists and so forth. The left has created a situation where political violence is acceptable. We all know about the whole punch a Nazi thing with Spencer. What a lot of people don't realize is that he didn't just get punched. The guy actually had like a wrench or something in his sleeve, and so he got hit much harder than it looked. So they've praised punching Nazis. Not only that, but they mocked, if you remember, those people during the election. They mocked the people who were Trump supporters who were attacked, physically attacked. And the there was no sympathy for them whatsoever from the journalists. The entire message was, tough, you deserved it. Well, guess what? It's payback time. So, again, one of the philosophies I think that the alt-right needs to adopt is we play by whatever the rules are. We shouldn't start things, but we should finish them. It was actually something that I learned from my sensei back when I was doing martial arts. He always said, start nothing, finish everything. I'm not afraid of physical confrontation. I spent 6 years, I think I estimated once that I think I got knocked to the ground, hit hard enough, either kicked or punched, hard enough to get knocked to the ground at least 200 times. It's not a big deal. Being tough is not about your ability to do things to other people. It's about your ability to get up off the ground and continue after you've just had the crap kicked out of you. And so, and that's true not only physically, it's true mentally and emotionally as well. Donald Trump, for example, is pretty tough mentally. He can take a shot. He can take a blow, and he can come back from it. And that is something that the alt-right needs to learn, because we are going to take shots emotionally, and in some cases, possibly physically, because the left has created the situation. So I think that the punch a commie meme could be effective. But the key thing, I think the most effective one is the Breitbart slogan of punch back twice as hard. That's something that even people on sort of the libertarian alt-right, people like Glenn Reynolds of Instapundit, have been more than happy to adopt. And so the thing is that extend the hand of friendship to those who are willing to be friends with you. And if somebody is playing the punch a Nazi game, if somebody is trying to push you around or whatever, take them down. The Hoppian libertarianism is like all libertarianism. It's a utopian ideal. It's an ideal that I cherish. It's also one that I don't believe is terribly relevant to the real world. And so the media is the enemy. This is what we understand. This is what we know. This is not going to change. I don't talk to the media. I get requests from the media all the time. I hear from the New York Times, from the BBC, from Sky News. I just got contacted for the, 5th or 6th time by Wired, despite the fact that it was my bad experience with a Wired reporter that taught me to stop talking to the media. You know, the woman actually went, this is right when SJW's Always Lie was going to come out. She actually read the draft of it and was talking to me about the whole rabid puppies thing, sad puppies thing. And then, kept me on the phone for like 2 hours just to try to get one little quote that she could try to use to portray me as a racist. Okay? That's what they do. And so that's why I don't talk to them. Now, I do have to communicate with them. So I always tell them when they contact me, no, I will not call you back. I don't care about your deadline. If you have any questions for me, send them to me in writing. And then I answer them. And then they don't use my answers because, as this commenter just noted, their narrative is already written and my answers don't feed into it. So anyhow, we understand that they are the enemy. I'm not shedding... How should alt-right respond when someone asks if they're racist? Ask if they're a pedophile. Someone says, are you racist? Just say, are you a pedophile? All that is a attempt to try to put you in a box. And if they say, well, no, I'm not, are you sure? Or, just keep pressing. Always, yeah. Or just say you have to go back. That works too. The point is, they are using rhetoric. It's right in SJW's Always Lie. Chapter 10 is called How to Talk to SJWs. And it basically delineates the difference between Aristotelian rhetoric and Aristotelian dialectic and explains to you the difference and explains when you use what. No, Louise Mensch is not an SJW. No, saying yes, so what is dialectic. You do not respond to rhetoric with dialectic. That's like somebody speaking to you and asking you a question in English and you respond in Chinese. It's not going to do any good. They have to go back works really well, and it works especially well when you're talking to somebody who's actually an American. It's pretty funny, but yeah, it's correct. When you're answering somebody, when you're answering rhetoric with dialectic, what you're doing is you're legitimizing their question. You're legitimizing the discussion. What you're doing when you're responding with rhetoric is you are letting them know, I'm on to you. You can't fool me. And so, also, whenever somebody says something is a logical fallacy, the left and also portions of the right who don't understand these things, they use what I call magic words. So you'll see sometimes people saying, "Oh, so and so they're a right-wing SJW." Well, there's no such thing. That's like saying you're a right-wing communist. An SJW is someone who believes wholeheartedly in social justice ideals. So even though you might use some of the tactics of an SJW, you're not an SJW. Yeah, right. They think it's an I win button. The same thing with, well, that's a logical fallacy. Really? Which one? Is it argumentum ad hominem? Is it argumentum ad absurdum? Is it Tucock? Which logical fallacy is it? I guarantee you that 9 times out of 10, when someone says, that's a logical fallacy, if you ask them which one, they cannot identify it. Great, it's a very effective tactic. Shuts them down, shuts them up. And it pretty much reveals to everybody that they have no idea what they're talking about. But anyhow, so somebody asked, are you in favor of punching journos? I personally would be in favor of the God Emperor impaling the entire White House press corps in the Rose Garden. So that's my answer. They are the enemy. They have declared themselves the enemy. They have behaved like the enemy. And there's no reason for them not to be treated like the enemy. Should we initiate violence? Ideally, no. But, they're not going to be, they are stoking up a situation. They are pouring gas on the fire, and they are going to end up reaping the fruit of what they've sown. The media is not neutral. The media is the enemy. There is absolutely no question about this. And so, I wish it wasn't that way. I would like it if we could all simply have rational, reasonable discussions about our differences. But the media does not permit that. The media is too intent on pushing their false narrative in order to try to influence public opinion through propaganda. So, what's the correct way to deal with that? I don't know. All I can say is the way that I deal with it is I refuse to talk to them. I refuse to have anything to do with them. And so, perhaps that's the right way. If we don't use them, if we don't talk to them, they will dry up and go away. I mean, you have to understand, journalism is already dying. Newsweek used to be hugely influential. They sold it for $1. The Washington Times, they're all being propped up. No, the West is not doomed. The West is in danger. I mean, for crying out loud, know your history. There was a time when the Umayyads controlled all of Spain. Muslims don't control a single country in Europe now. I don't really get into I just observe what I see. I don't know about the whole red pilled, black pilled, purple pilled. I don't really pay much attention to that sort of thing. I observe what I see, and things are going to get difficult for everybody. Well, according to some people, they already have based a fictional character off me. If you look at the cover of Far Cry 5, like everyone, I get pessimistic from time to time, but I'm generally optimistic. As a person, but that's what I was talking about before. That's what resilience is. Resilience is having a bad day, seeing bad news, and getting yourself up and just saying, okay, this is difficult, but we have to get back to it. So, the response to Manchester is exactly the same as it always was. Just the usual vigil and stronger together, united, blah, blah, blah. The usual BS. So, anyhow, I need to get back to work editing John C. Wright's latest. Look for City of Corpses coming soon. Don't get yourself down. Don't let yourself get down. If they knock you down, get yourself up. Find something productive to do. Do what Cernovich does. Tell yourself today, okay, today, who can I help? What can I do for somebody who is worthy of my assistance? So, anyhow, have a good one. and we'll see you soon.